Okay, so we're going to cover the general digestive system plan. Basically, the GI tract is a tube that runs through the body from the mouth, there's the opening of the mouth, to the anus. Okay? So we're going to cover the structures all the way from mouth to anus. Coming in through the mouth here, we have the oral cavity, and you can see the teeth. We use that for mastication. We see the tongue. We also use that to help process food and increase the surface area before we swallow it. Passing through the oral cavity, we can see the uvula in the back of the oral cavity, and then we'll pass into the part of the pharynx called the oropharynx. From the oropharynx, we lead down to the laryngopharynx. If we were to go this way, we would end up in the larynx and trachea, but we don't want food and liquid to go this way, so we have the epiglottis that helps to route food and liquid down into this muscular tube, which is the esophagus. And so we follow the esophagus down, and we get to this organ here. This would be the stomach. This portion of the stomach is called the lesser curvature. This portion is called the greater curvature. And we can look inside the stomach. Up here, we have a sphincter called the cardiac sphincter, or also known as the gastroesophageal sphincter, because the esophagus is meeting the stomach, the gastric part of the GI tract. And then we can see the ridges inside the stomach. These are called rugae, and rugae allow the stomach to increase in size. When we get down to the end of the stomach, we have another sphincter. This is called the pyloric sphincter, and the pyloric sphincter controls the flow of material from the stomach into the first section of the small intestine. The small intestine is actually made up of three parts. The first section of the small intestine is known as the duodenum, and the duodenum will come out of the stomach and it will follow along the pancreas. Eventually the duodenum will become the middle section of the small intestine, which we call the jejunum. And then the last section of the small intestine we can see here. The last section is called the ileum of the small intestine. The ileum connects to the large intestine, and we have this valve structure here. This is called the ileocecal valve. So the ileum is meeting up with the cecum of the large intestine, so we call this section the cecum. Extending from the cecum, you can see the appendix. The appendix is part of the lymphatic system. We go back to the cecum, and then we move up this direction. So this portion of the large intestine is called the ascending colon. And then we're going to make a turn here at the end of the ascending colon. And this is called the hepatic flexure, because it's going to be near the liver. This is hepatic flexure. And the hepatic flexure turns into this portion of the large intestine, which we call the transverse colon. And then when we get to the end of the transverse colon, we make a turn here. It's called the splenic flexure, because it's right next to this organ, which is the spleen. And while we're here, this is the pancreas. So we see the pancreas underneath the stomach, and then we see the spleen next to the stomach and this flexure of the large intestine that we call the splenic flexure. Now we're going to go down this way. This is called the descending colon. And then we make an S-shaped turn. Can't really see it on this model, but it does sort of make an S-shaped turn. This portion of the colon is called the sigmoid colon. So descending colon, sigmoid colon. And then when we get to the end of the sigmoid colon, we now have reached the rectum. This is the rectum of the GI tract. The rectum leads to these ridges that we call the anal canal, and then the opening at the end is referred to as the anus. Several other structures that you can see on this model. We also have a model of the liver. We also have a gallbladder. And then it's showing hepatic artery and hepatic portal vein, and it's showing inferior vena cava as part of the liver.